In Colorado, it was 1979, talking to Tina Owen's mother. Tina was my classmate from high school. And she said, "Mike, what are you doing?" I said, "Well, I farm and ranch. I had just finished construction on the tri-state feeders there at St. Francis, Kansas, 14,000 head feedlot, and was, just thinking I had a great future ahead of me, feeding cattle and buying local corn and hay and whatever." And she said, "You're a farmer." She said, "You're a rancher." She said, "My grandfather told me years ago that farmers and ranchers create wealth." Wes, you mentioned that and the importance of it. She said, "He also told me that everyone else just does the laundry." How important is a farmer? That wealth creator that Ben Franklin talked about, the person who puts the seed in the ground and adds water and sunshine, and as if by magic, wealth is created every single year in the seasons. And this is Kansas. And we need to realize that we do important work and that it needs to be respected and honored and valued by those who eat our food. And that there is a difference between industrial agriculture and family farm agriculture. Industrial agriculture is not conventional. Industrial agriculture is not traditional. It's only been around 40 years, and it is now a fully proven failed experiment. The debate is over. It's been over since I know the day it changed, Chris. I was at the governor's conference in South Dakota on a panel after speaking that day with the chairman, CEO, and president of IBP, Bob Peterson. And because Bob Peterson could not debate the issue about industrial agriculture over family farm agriculture, he exploded in front of 1,000 people, mothers and children, and said words that are unspeakable in any kind of company, let alone mixed company. And Bruce Bass, his head buyer, was down in the second row, I think, in the auditorium, which held about 1,000 people, and he was going like this. And Bob Peterson, honestly, did not appear in public in front of a mixed audience ever again in his career because he lost the debate. And we won the hearts and the minds of the eaters in that auditorium that day. That is when it was over. We were reminded how it was over when Bill Bullard debated Terry Stokes in La Junta, Colorado, and they have never made that mistake again. So we have a fully defensible food system with a lot of tradition and a lot of history. And we simply need to get more people to understand the differences between industrial agriculture and family farm agriculture. Changing the way we eat can change the way food is produced. What you support prospers, what you feed grows. Eaters, come to our table. Let us put food on it for you and then realize how it should be on yours at home. Serve a lot of samples. So this is St. Francis chickens. My cattle buddies think I'm crazy. We've got chickens at our place at the cattle company in St. Francis, Kansas. These are hogs from Benatucci Farms. This is Marcy Namath's two of her sons, Richard and David. This is just a typical urban garden at the top. Let's eat more food out of our backyards. What happened to family farms? They lost their markets. And here it's depicted in this graph from 1950 to 2012. Look what happened to the farm share of the beef dollar. Now this was at a time when the big packers were consolidating and concentrating, when they had started to cooperate rather than compete, which happened in the late 70s. Clearly, they were not supporting a competitive market. And during that big slide down from 75 to 95 is when IBP, Cargill, ConAgra, and National Beef controlled 85% of the market, essentially. So they went from 30-some% four-firm concentration to 85% four-firm concentration. And it was somewhere at the very bottom there around 1998 when I got crossways with the packers, and they finally admitted that they were boycotting me. And I couldn't sell my cattle anymore. And so I've got thousands of cattle in a feedlot. I've got 832 head on the show list that have been on the show list. These are the fat ones that need to go for about 3 weeks. And I call Dan Glickman up from USDA, Secretary of Agriculture. It's his job to enforce the antitrust law that makes packers stop cheating producers. And I said, Dan, he's my former congressman, right, from Kansas. Dan, why don't you enforce the Packers and Stockyards Act? And he said, well, you know, Mike, in this new world of globalized markets, we need big companies that can do business globally. So you see the shift from local to global. But he did do one nice thing for me. He made ConAgra buy all of those cattle, 14,000 head of them. As they became finished and fat, I emptied that feedlot and it was over. I shut down and 15 families went to St. Francis without a job, without an income. We lost a corn buyer, a hay buyer. This was a big deal. We shut it down. And then it was about a year later, I decided in about 2000, this is not fair. I know what's wrong with the beef that we're producing today in this industrial market. Let's produce something spectacular and let's get directly to the consumer. And that's when Ranch Foods Direct was formed. It was in the spring of 2000. So let's talk about where the money goes. The producer, you folks that produce this food, essentially in the meat business, you put up 85% of the capital that it takes to put a hamburger or a steak on the plate. You do the work, you take the risk. Weather, death loss, sickness, all kinds of risks, whether they breed or not, those kinds of risks. The folks in the retail and meat packing sector put up about 15% of the capital that is required to put that same steak and hamburger on the plate. Not same, right? You don't produce the same kind of meat, hopefully. But regarded by many eaters as the same thing. And they put up about 15%, but what are they doing? Making 21% return on their equity over the last 6 years at the retail store. Matt Couts was talking about the retailer is certainly not your friend. They're out there not investing a whole lot of money and turning it over big time and getting big returns. Meat packing, those are the guys that always lose money. Every single time one of these PR people for the Packers opens his mouth, it's about how much in the red the meat packers are. It has been that way for the last 20 or 30 years. They come out with a 17% return on their equity for losing all that money in their operations, as they explained as the year went on. Meanwhile, at the farm, we're losing a 0.5% on our return on our investment over the last 13 years. Big food. Big food is a dark place. This is the Tysons, the Cargills, the JBSs. It's the Walmarts, the Ciscos, the US Foods. These are the multinational corporations that I call the masters of the universe over food. This is the Monsanto, the ADM. These are corporations that are based on Wall Street that only care about profit. And it's profit over people, it's profit over animals, it's profit over the environment, and it's profit over your rural community. They extract and they exploit. And they have got a lock on the food system today. Like an hourglass, you have to get through big food to be able to sell what you produce. If you are a medium-sized producer, if you are any larger size producer that really, in western Kansas, eastern Colorado, Yuma, Colorado, if you've got 200 cows, if you've got 300 cows, if you've got 1,000 acres of corn, you got to do business with big food. You probably got to buy their seed, you got to buy their fertilizer, and they're fixing the price and rigging the markets on all of it. And paying you as little as possible. You are a cost to be reduced, and your animals are a cost to be reduced. Big food, where the takers reside, the big corporations, the CEOs, the bureaucrats, the politicians, the brokers, the middlemen, agents, and certifiers. Notice I added that last one, Joe.
I did.
They create nothing. They produce no wealth, they extract, they exploit, they abuse, and they enslave. They mine our soils and pollute, they make us sick. And they operate above the law. Don't they, Dudley? Absolutely. We had those hearings all over the country. Dudley, you made every single one of them as GIPS administrator for USDA. We had the Justice Department there. They were going to fix it. They even got people to bare their souls. Christine Barney handed the guy a card saying, hey, tell us what you think, and he did. And she said, hey, if they come back and retaliate against you, you got my phone number. What happened to Christine Barney? She quit. What happened to him? Does anybody know? Very likely got retaliated against. Vincent C. Vickers, governor of the Bank of England in 1910. Do you remember? Did anybody read The Jungle by Upton Sinclair?
Amen.
Did anybody know about the robber barons of that day? Standard Oil, Rockefeller, the railroad trusts, all the meat trusts, the oil trusts. Absolutely. He lived during that time, but he was from England. And so anyway, governor of the Bank of England in 1910 described them as drones of the national beehive. I love this analogy. They live and are dependent upon the honey that others collect. Like the unemployed, they are supported at the cost of the nation. I love putting these people in the same place as the unemployed, perhaps as the people standing in line at the soup kitchen. But who put those people in that line at that soup kitchen? The drones, the drone bees. And what does the drone bee do, really? He hangs out with the queen and he eats honey. That's it. That's it. He has a great life at our expense. He said, if productive industry could cut out the intervening profit of the middleman, this is 102 years ago, and trade direct with the individual consumers of their products, there would follow an immediate demand throughout the country for a much greater production. In other words, more wealth creation. How do we prosper? We create wealth, soil, water, sunshine. Cow eats grass, has a calf. We get to eat a hamburger. Necessitating an increased employment of labor and therefore an eventual reduction of taxation. Does anybody want to send this to Obama for tomorrow night's debate? This is what we have to start talking about. What is an animal worth? Let's get into the real numbers here, which you all do. A 1,350-pound live weight animal at 42% retail yield, it gives us 567 pounds of fresh retail beef. This is all based on USDA's reports and numbers. 1,350 pounds live is the typical USDA steer and heifer finished weight. 567 pounds at $505, which is the average retail price, is $2,863 per head. That's a lot of money. The drop credit's $175. Doggone it, John Nadlifka forgot to mention that, didn't he? When he talked about how deep in the red the Packers are. He always forgets that, and so does Andy Gottschalk. Those guys just have trouble with numbers. It's the arithmetic is what gets them. The total value right now of a 1,350-pound animal at USDA inspected animal is $30,038 per head.
I don't understand.
That's a lot. What's that?
What's the drop credit?
Drop credit is the hide, the head, the heart, the tongue, the liver, and the tail.
You sell that?
And
yes,
it might be the pituitary gland. It might be other stuff within that animal that you are able to sell. It's everything that doesn't sell really across as beef across the retail counter. It's got major value.
but it still has value.
And we're going to hit on that a little bit, Laura, when we talk about the mobile slaughter unit and the value of pulling a hide as opposed to cutting one off in a cradle. Reducing hide damage makes a big difference. So, 1,350-pound live animal at $1.20, which is roughly the live cattle market, is $1,620 a head, is 53% of the retail value. What packer and retail share is $1,418 per head, equals 47% of the retail value. So the folks that are putting up 15% of the capital are getting 47% return. The guys that put up 85% of the capital get 53% of that retail value. The packer and retailer probably own it typically anywhere from 1 outside 2 weeks. How long did it take you, Dr. Parks, to produce that animal that's ready for market. By the time you breed the heifer, well, first you got to raise the heifer. Then we breed the heifer. 9 months later, she has a calf, and probably about 2 years later, your meat hits your customers' freezers. That's more than 2 weeks, isn't it? That's more than 2 weeks. In 1975, the producer received 65% of the retail value of beef. That's the last time we knew the market was competitive. The packers consolidated, the packers concentrated, they started cooperating, but all the time saying to everyone how efficient they were and how the economies of scale were giving them all of this advantage that they could then pass on to the consumer, right? Today's 53% farm share leaves the producer 12% short. Even though we've got much better prices than we had 3 years ago, much better prices, we are still 12% short times $3,038 is we are still short $370 a head of our share of what consumers pay for beef at the retail meat counter. Note, farm share is an indicator of market power. As the meat industry has become more concentrated, 35% firm concentration to over 80%, while touting the benefits of economies of scales and efficiencies, producers have been squeezed. Consumers have paid more for industrially produced, lower quality, highly processed food. How to increase farm and ranch gate income? Go around big food. That's a dark place. Do not go there. A pilot gets it, right? People who fly airplanes. If you fly, nobody flies through a thunderstorm. A 747 doesn't fly through a thunderstorm. Nobody ever does that because you die. The wings fall, the wings come flying off. You're sitting there in a tube with no wings. I mean, this is something you do not ever do. You'd never fly through a thunderstorm. And that is exactly what Walmart is with their partner Tyson and all of the related Cisco's, US Foods, etc. Do not go there. You will die. I guarantee you. Just a cool idea that Laura talked about, Aaron came up with, this Cowpool thing. It's fun. It's fun. We get to sell direct, right direct to the consumer. This came from a lady in Tennessee, Claybrook Farms. This giant T-bone tasted like it came from a happy cow. We love our beef from Claybrook. And they'll love yours too if they can just find out who you are and how to get it. Now let's look at something here. 1,200-pound animal, that's what we produce. It might, if it's a grass-fed animal, it may be 1,100 pounds. It might be 1050. But on my program at Ranch Food with Calicrate, we raise them on grass and finish them on hay and grain. And so I've got a year-round supply. And I'm different than some people that just do it on grass. So 1,200-pound animal without growth-enhancing compounds, and we figure it's worth about 150 pounds to use the growth-enhancing compounds, the growth promotants, the Lance Armstrong stuff. Times 47% yield. You notice I didn't say 42%, I said 47% yield, and I'll tell you why, it's bone in. That yields 564 pounds of meat. If you will cut your animals bone in, instead of boneless and all that, you know, value-added fillets and flat irons and all that stuff, you get a 5% extra yield out of the animal. You get to sell the bone. The meat tastes better and the dog is happier. And it's faster. We can do 2 boneless animals a day, or we can do 8 bone-in animals a day at Ranch Foods Direct. And by the way, Ranch Foods Direct is all about connecting you to your eater. It happens to serve the purpose for myself as well. 1,200-pound animal times 63% carcass yield equals 756 pounds hanging weight. Let's figure the costs. 756 pounds times $379 a pound hanging weight, which just happens to be our price, is $2,865. Slaughter fee, $65 through the mobile slaughter unit that Laura and her group own. Processing fee, 68 cents times the hanging weight is $514. Net income back to the farm and ranch gate is $2,286 per head. Is that better than selling to Tyson? Cargill? So this is about creating the alternative food system. How do we make it work? How do we make this possible for a lot more people? $2,286 divided by 1,200 pounds is $1.90 to the producer for your finished animal. 1,200 pound animal times 47% yield, 564 pounds of retail beef, that's $5.08 a pound to the cost to the customer. How much is that meat at Walmart? $5.05 a pound, average. You're 3 cents higher. Can you sell 3 cents in value with your program for people to know where their food comes from and to have meat that doesn't make their stomach hurt after the meal? And not to have to buy pink slime? Laura and her group are part of the SRAP, Chris, that you're on the board of. And Laura's group was financed to build this mobile slaughter unit, which you see right here. This is Holly Terry, in fact, inside that mobile slaughter unit. And we're giving the tour. That's the splitting, that's the breaking saw right there you see in Cole's left hand. And this is the carcasses hanging in the cooler. And so this has been a cool project. It's been around 3 years, because this is our 3rd year at Benettucci.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I think, yeah, the trailers probably got to you about 3.5 years
Yeah.
ago when we started our process.
And this week, that trailer is now in Colorado Springs at the Benettucci farm, and we're going to do about 30 animals there this week for folks, including the Benettucci animals. But it's a demonstration. Last year, 2 years ago, about 400 people showed up. And it was moms, kids. There was a group of young ladies there from Colorado College that showed up the first thing in the morning. They wanted to be there and see it all. From when we knock the animal, we got a chute that we catch the animal in, and we restrain the head, and we do a good kill on this animal that doesn't have to be repeated, but they die instantly. We hang them, we bleed them, and we take them to the unit where it's eviscerated and hung in the cooler. And so these young ladies were there all day until about noon, and it was lunchtime. They'd already seen several animals fully processed and hanging in the cooler. Young lady comes up to me, and we're serving hamburgers. Not from these cattle, but other hamburgers.
But they were Mike's hamburgers.
And we're serving these hamburgers, and this young lady comes up to me, and she says, "Mr. Calcrate, I'm a vegetarian. Tell me why I should eat this hamburger." I said, "Well, why are you a vegetarian?" And she said, "Because I don't like the way animals are treated in this modern meat system." And I said, "Well, how do you feel now?" She says, I feel good. I feel good. I love what I've seen here today. Animals are treated with respect. I said, good. You should eat the beef because that is not an issue anymore. But the other reason that you should eat the beef is because it's good for you. You need it as part of a healthy diet. But the other reason that might be the most important is to show respect for this animal. She went back to college and joined the Carnivore Club, where they eat beef, meat, chicken, pork every week and have a big cookout. This is what's possible if you give people an alternative other than Walmart, other than Sysco. How would restaurants like to be part of this? Restaurants that aren't constantly trying to beat you up on the price. Just a little bit more of what our operation looks like. That truck backs up to the door. The carcasses are unloaded into the carcass cooler. This is just part of our processing floor over here. We've added a new room where we're doing a lot of grind in there now for school lunch. We're in 8 school districts. We're in over 100 restaurants, and we thought a retail store on this facility 10 years ago was a good idea, and it has been a good idea.
And it's hopping.
This last week, the week before last, it snowed a little bit, so everybody's thinking, oh, got to go shopping. We were up 27% in our retail sales from the year before. This last week, when the sun was shining and it was beautiful, we were up 11%. Year to date, we're probably up 16% year to date. But last year, compared to the year before, we were up 26% in our retail store. And that's where the margin is. That's where you all need to be selling, is at that level, in order to maximize the income back to your farm and ranch gate. But we represent AVOG in this store. Marcy and her kids have a place to hand out CSA, the Community Supported Agriculture stuff, to their members every year. We've got a big banner on the side of the building with a picture of their family. 4 beautiful kids that all want to farm, and Marcy. We are all about connecting the farm to the consumer any way we possibly can. Economic development versus community development. You know, Dan, we were talking about the idea of a public market in Colorado Springs. And how many of you have read Fast Food Nation? So not all of you know about Colorado Springs. Eric Schlosser did a great job in the book Fast Food Nation of describing this city. Completely dysfunctional. I mean, they've got the hard right, they've got the hard left, they've got the gay and lesbian fund that used to be there. They are critical, they are judgmental, they are a diverse population, big time. And part of the reason is the military. We have 3 or 4 military bases if you count NORAD. So we've got just a blend of people from all over that have come into Colorado Springs. Fast food thinks that's cool because they can go there and test new ideas and get feedback. But it's really not been a city that has been friendly to small business. It's been a city that has worshipped Wall Street, with the Chamber of Commerce promoting Wall Street nonstop. And it has literally gutted the city, as it does anywhere Wall Street-based companies are located. It becomes an extraction model. We build infrastructure to accommodate Wall Street companies so they can come there selling things from somewhere else while taking the money away every day. But we're starting to recover. And I can't think of a better place to plop down a public market and show the country what is possible. We're going to talk about that a little bit. But economic development versus community development. Economic development is not necessarily community development, and in fact it may be economic destruction for the community. Look at the Walmart in Goodland, Kansas. What has happened to Goodland, Kansas? And the towns within 30 or 40 miles in every direction. Their main streets have died, and we have let Walmart set up their points of extraction all across the country and concentrate that power and wealth. Big companies swallowing up school lunch money. This is a lawless business. There is no law enforcement. There is no antitrust law enforcement. Where in the world has the FTC been? The Federal Trade Commission has been on a paid vacation for 30 years. They don't enforce the laws. Here we've got Sodexo, the biggest food management company in the world, 380,000 employees in 80 countries, and they're cheating school kids out of lunches. Attorney General from New York filed a case. Last I knew, 15 other states' attorney generals have joined it. This is not good. When big food has this much power over us and our government. In fact, this talked about District 11, Rick Hughes. Talk about a model that works and one that really honors the kids and feeds them good food. Right there in Colorado Springs, we got some cool stuff happening in Colorado Springs with District 11. Putting the family farm face on industrial agribusiness. I said they lost the debate. They know their model doesn't work. Now, how do they get the family farm face on their food?
They steal it.
You form the U.S. Farmers and Ranchers Alliance. It's made up of Farm Bureau. It's made up of Monsanto, ADM, Tyson. You guys know the list. Monsanto, they're all there. And worse, they're using our checkoff dollars that were supposed to be serving the interests of independent producers to promote that model of industrial agriculture. So I decided it's time to file a lawsuit against the Secretary of Agriculture on the mismanagement and the misallocation of those checkoff dollars because they weren't being managed in such a way that was in alignment with the act and the order of the original checkoff law. We're going to win that one. Hopefully that decision gets made. We don't have to go to court. The Secretary does the right thing, hopefully after the election. We're waiting on an OIG report as well right now before we proceed on either side. This is that, and I got to tell you, Bill, the Colorado Proud label, please don't let them steal it. Stand up. This is so wrong, I can't tell you how wrong it is. Cargill and Safeway go Locavore, and they put the Colorado Proud label right on it. This is wrong. This is the biggest privately held corporation on planet Earth. Cargill. Who's number 2? Koch. Koch brothers is number 2. Private. Notice I didn't say publicly held. They're private, so secret. It's a big secret. Okay. Safeway How many deals have Safeway screwed up? The last monster of a deal was Future Beef in Arkansas, in Ark City, Kansas. 250 million or something like that lost to producers in that so-called partnership with Safeway. Tyson launches unique new audit program for on-farm animal treatment. So now Tyson has their foot on the neck of a chicken grower that's got $1 million mortgage and a 3-year contract, and is in fear for his life he's going to lose the contract, and now they're going to make him fill out a bunch of paperwork or you know, just who knows what. It's just abusive what is going on in this. So this is where I'm located. This is Fillmore Street. It's fast food alley. We've got Taco Bell, Sonic, Burger King, Arby's, McDonald's, and we just decided, Aaron decided, what about real meat? What if we just put up, let's get aggressive. Let's ask the consumer if they want real meat. Well, what was so cool about that, how long was that billboard up before Taco Bell's news came out about their meat being only 38% meat?
Like
Oh, God.
3 days.
and so, of course, we get the camera out, and then we Facebook it and blog it and do all that stuff, really hoping that Taco Bell would sue us. And they didn't. But it would have been fun. Would have got some news. So, this is what I need your help, Bill. I need your help, and Dan. This could be cool, and this could answer the questions of like Matt and Jay and a lot of people that say I got to scale up a little bit. I got a son-in-law that's coming back, and my daughter is pregnant, and they want to be in the chicken business, and how do we get this thing scaled up here to where we can really connect consumers, and when they go in this place, they can not only own it, perhaps as a cooperative member, but they can tell everybody in the world that they know about it. And the food is good. And it's the CFAM kind of a thing where they're all your friends and they're doing things right. And they support community. And they believe in animal welfare. And they believe that workers should be treated with dignity and respect. This is what I would like to see. This is Zombie Bill currently. Zombie Bill in Colorado Springs. It's the old Chrissy Fowler lumberyard. It's been there going on 12 years, abandoned. Nobody's wanting to do anything with it, and it's a place that could use some renewal. Just so happens it's got a beautiful park called the America the Beautiful Park with an awesome water feature in it, with no parking lot, no way to really get to it very easily. We could put a pedestrian bridge across from this market, across the railroad tracks. Anyway, a lot of excitement, not among the city leadership, among the people. And this could give us some new leadership, perhaps. We could ask the question, what kind of community do we want? So, thank you.